Greetings and thank you for joining me on the Victor Independence channel. I want to talk about Egypt and how that entire region is going to play out when it comes to investments, when it comes to the economic scenario that I have been predicting for the last 2 years as far as the U.S. entering into an inflationary depression. You know, the prediction that oil is going to go up, that we're going to see $150 barrel or $200 or $300 barrel oil, it can be a prediction that gets accelerated as far as it being fulfilled and being accurate because of instability in a certain region. I mean, even the depression in the United States could be accelerated if there was a large natural disaster or something in California or New York or somewhere where it's a high populous state. But in regards to Egypt, oil was up 4.3% on Friday. Call options, these are people making bets that oil is going to go up on Friday for a US ETF on oil. That was up 7 times the 4-week average. So obviously investors, they're looking at potential supply issues for oil. And already, you know, with quantitative easing 1 and now quantitative easing 2, we were already seeing oil go up. But, you know, especially, you know, you look at Chinese demand as well. Throw that in there and then throw in some instability in the Middle East, some real instability. I mean, this isn't just their normal stuff that we, you know, have going on over there every few weeks. This is civil unrest. We already saw one leader ousted a few weeks ago. And if you look at this map, you've got some hot spots, but you even got Jordan and Saudi Arabia. Those countries have protests. Now, if Saudi Arabia was to have some type of massive situation like they're seeing in Egypt. And I'm not saying they are, because right now it's just, I think I read it was 3,000 people protesting. You know, Egypt, you're looking at $100 to $115, $120 barrel oil. But if Saudi Arabia goes, I mean, it's like oil, pick a number. I was very pleased to see how gold and silver responded, again confirming what we saw throughout 2010. Remember in 2008, you know, I personally was very confident that the stock market was going to go down and gold and silver were going to have a positive reaction because investors would flood into gold and silver wanting to purchase them. We didn't see that. What we saw was people flood into treasuries. We saw them flood into the riskiest asset of all, the biggest bubble, the mother of all bubbles, and actually them flooding into it in '08. And the new demand for debt for the United States has made it an even bigger bubble. This is huge. Now in 2010, we saw Greece. Greece was the first thing to kind of break out as far as sovereign debt, as far as little civil unrest over there. We later saw it in a few other countries. Gold and silver had a positive reaction. Dow Jones went down, S&P went down, but gold and silver went up. And, you know, gold and silver first decoupled themselves from the stock market, and then we also saw them decouple themselves from the dollar. Because on Friday, we saw gold and silver have huge moves up. Here's some charts of gold and silver. But we also saw the dollar gain strength. Why? Because it is still officially the reserve currency of the world. So when there's instability, people want to have something certain. The dollar is still exchangeable for commodities. It is still the currency that people use for transactions, not people, but nations use for transactions. And, you know, so people are using the dollar, but they're also going to gold and silver. Now, of course, there's supply issues and there's things going on with gold and silver that have been manipulating them down. So the potential for gold and silver to just pop is much greater because of those fundamentals, because of just a little demand could go a long way. I mean, I read something recently, a report, and I don't know who I can quote it, so I apologize to the person not to give them credit for their research. Pension funds, if they just moved 5% of their assets to gold, you'd have to have $5,000 gold. So, and again, you know, we've seen research in the past, I've talked about on Vision Victory, where, you know, the average from 1920 to 1980 of global financial assets in gold-related investments, mining funds or gold itself, was 20%, and now it's less than 1%. So just some demand going into gold and silver. I mean, we're a really small market. I know when you're watching YouTube videos all day or you're checking out dollarcollapse.com and Zero Hedge and all these guys, you're like, man, you know, I'm just maybe I'm in a bubble because that's all I'm reading. our community is extremely small. If you look at NIA's documentary Melt Up, I don't think it's even hit 1 million views yet. It's still under 1 million. It's been out since May. It's a documentary about hyperinflation, basically about what's going on with the stock market, and it's still under 1 million views. So the market is very tiny. I mean, it doesn't matter how much money you spend on advertising a documentary or how good it is. If you look at these economic documentaries, they all pretty much, they range from 400,000 to roughly 1 million. They really don't go much higher than that. Um, in closing, when looking at gold and silver, since they popped, I don't, the charts were very bad. The charts looked like gold was going to 1250 and silver was going to 25. But because of this demand, because of the instability, and because it looks like instability is going to continue as far as civil unrest, possibly Egyptian's president or dictator getting kicked out, it looks, in my opinion, it looks like it's definitely a real possibility. So I expect gold and silver to have now broken that trend. If people were shorting silver or shorting gold, I think they're going to eat it this week. I think gold and silver are going to go up. Of course, it's a short-term prediction, so I've got a 50-50 chance, or 33% chance of being right. I guess they could also be flat, but in my opinion, and this is just me shooting from the hip, so don't run and buy a bunch of gold call options for February. But what I'm basically saying is instability is good for gold and silver, and I see a lot of instability over the next 7 days and beyond. All right, you guys have a great day.